Well, I'm going to talk about a couple things besides there's a cat pooping over here. you know, First off, the assault weapons ban looks like they killed it. They're not going to have one. I don't know if they're going to just try to screw with guns anyway, but as far as the so-called semi-automatic black-colored rifle ban, which is really what they call assault weapon, that's pretty much not going to happen. Because it looks like a lot of the Democrats backed off of it. You know, I guess they want to get reelected. So that deal looks like it's dead. But, you know, keep the pressure on. The only reason they backed off is because they got scared about a lot of people, like, you know, that's the way I'd vote. You screw with any guns and you go for gun legislation and gun control, man, I vote against you, period. So a lot of people, that's just how it is, you know. So now, the other thing with Cyprus, that deal ain't over with. You know, I know they voted against the bailout. I'm going to flip over on a couple news stories here, I guess. I read stuff, so I figure I'll pass it on. What the hell? And, but with Cyprus, it looks like, you know, Gazprom's like the big Russian gas provider. And actually, Russia's the #1 natural gas provider in the world. #2 is Iran. But actually, by square footage of the country, square miles of the country, Iran has got a hell of a lot of natural gas. But there's a lot of natural gas in the area around Cyprus. So Gazprom from Russia is actually talking about, you know, making a deal. Well, they'll bail them out if they get the gas exploration rights around there. Now, this stuff with the banks, this stuff ain't even ending. I heard that one German guy talking about doing it to the Italian and Spanish banks, you know, put a one-time levy on them. Now, in New Zealand, they're talking about it too. I'm like, but you know what? You just know how the average person in America is? Oh, that'll never happen here. You know, my message is for the few. But you know, it should mean that gold and silver should start going up. But just don't think it's going to go up right away, because, you know, most people are like lethargic lemmings. You know, they don't think. You know, the average. You know, I would look at this and I'd say, "Damn, that's a damn good reason to be holding gold and silver," because you really, you know, some of the stupid reasons they said, or, you know, corny reasons, was keep it outside the system, keep it outside the banking system. Well, that's probably a pretty smart thing to do now in light of what's going on, because this will spread. You know, there's going to be banking failures in the United States too at one point in time, and who the hell knows? Well, they did it in Europe. You know what I mean? It's like, well, the Europeans were able to handle it. You know, the people in New Zealand were able to handle a one-time tax. Why can't the Americans? You have to sacrifice. These are tough times. So, you know, it's not going to happen right away, but it will happen. Now, one other thing is kind of interesting with Iran. Iran, right? I was looking at an article, and basically what they got, it's right from there. It's right from there. It's from the FARS news agency, their news agency. They have decentralized their military command just in case of an imminent attack. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to get attacked right away, but, you know, I thought they were going to get attacked last year, and actually it was very close to them being attacked, because Netanyahu was like right there. I mean, the Mossad just pulled them back. It was very close anyway. But it looks like, you know, it's going to happen pretty soon. It's going to happen pretty soon. I think so. And when it does, watch the markets go down and watch gold and silver go up in oil. So, but they just decentralized their military command, because if there's an attack, they don't want people in different command structures in the country to wait for orders from central command to respond. They want to be able to respond immediately. So that's another indication something's brewing. I don't know. I mean, they've been talking about this for freaking years now, but it seems like it's getting a lot closer. And, you know, obviously you're not even going to find out when an attack's going to occur, because, you know, the element of surprise is everything. But, you know, you would think the most opportune time is around late spring. So, you know, it could be happening pretty soon. That's another sign that's very bullish for gold and silver. And the other thing is, I was talking about is New Zealand is also talking about doing a tax on the depositor's money, one-time tax, which could be another time later. Could be the one-time tax and then another one-time tax a few years down the road. And the Cyprus deal is not over with. And but the one good news, and I could say that's good news for anybody that holds silver and gold outside the banking system. That is good news. So, that this deal is not going to go away. And even if this gets ironed out, it's, it's going to be a mess coming up a little later on anyway. So, but once this idea got floated about doing this tax on the depositors, now all these other people are talking about it. That should create some problems with the banking system, I guess, where people's faith is really shaken. I don't think it's going to occur that way in the United States, though, because most people will just say it's Europe. Like, it can't happen here. Yeah, whatever. Maybe it's going to start in Europe and it's going to spread over here, but that's just how it goes. And I just want to kind of recap this with, looks like the assault weapon, I keep the pressure on, though, but it looks like the assault weapon ban issue is dead in the Senate. It's like, it ain't going nowhere. And the reason that stopped is there's so many people that were against it, and the people that are against it it's like a one-issue type thing, They will not support any politician that goes for gun control. It's like a hot button issue. That's the way it is with me, too. It's bullshit. Because in my opinion, actually, you think about it, who the hell is the police in the military? It's from the civilians. It's from the people themselves. Police and the people police themselves, too. That's another thing. So, but as far as, like what goes on in the military, I mean, we are the military. And that's one of the reasons you want to have civilians to have good weapons, too, because if there ever was a problem sometime in the future, you don't know when it doesn't seem like it's going to happen soon. But if there ever was, you have a very well-armed populace, hey, no country's going to be able to screw this place up and take it over. They just won't be able to. There's too many guns over here. That's why it just won't happen. So, New World Order finds that to be a problem, don't they? Oh, well. Oh, well. I mean, they ought to just start thinking about some other shit. I mentioned, so I'm going to kind of digress here a little bit, but I mentioned something about hemp. I always mention this about hemp and medicinal marijuana being like the solution for the middle class's problems and the mankind's problems. But knowing how the devils work, you know what the oil industry is going to do? Well, you can see it's obvious already. They're going into the water industry, right? Water rights. Just like the damn politician wants to tax your bicycle because you exhale air and you create greenhouse gases. As long as they got a method they can take a cut out of your hemp production, they'll do it. And they're going to do it through water rights. So, I don't know. I think the solution is people sit back and they say, it's good enough what I got. And, it's like, like if somebody's buying gasoline, they say, well, if it's $3.50 or $3 a gallon, that's cheap enough. I can afford that. I think it ought to be 25 cents, That's the way I look at it, And if I got a certain amount of money, why not have more? Right? Don't mean you're going to spend it. Someday my cat will be filthy rich after I die, and he lives to be 50 years old, So that's the way I look at it, I don't care. I don't care. There's no limits. So, so that's really what happens with people. They get kind of like, like this gun victory. We kind of got the problem with the assault weapons, or whatever we want to call them, the black-colored rifles with a pistol grip, whatever the hell it is. They're not going to try to ban them. They're taking it out of the bill. But, hey, victory ain't here till, they push back some of these stupid laws. And victory isn't here until they start examining these quack psychologists with their stupid meds and psychiatrists with their stupid meds that are causing all these shootings. And victory ain't here until we look real deep into Sandy Hook and figure out exactly who actually was pulling the trigger on his children. I don't think it was the Adam Lanza. I think it was done by pros, professionals. In other words, it was an incident that was contrived by some people to push for a gun control agenda in the United States. So, you know, victory ain't here until all that is, you know, out, and just like 911, victory ain't here until you got exposed at. Now, as far as the elite, I really don't have nothing against them, to tell you the truth, you know. It's like, you know, they're just power-hungry bastards, but what the hell? I mean, everybody is in a way, you know. But, you know, there's always a way for everybody to get more. That's the way I look at it. You don't have to freaking screw over 90% of the people so 1% can get more. Everybody can get more. That's the way I look at things. And one of the biggest solutions is going to be hemp. But I kind of figure what those jackasses are going to do. They're going to tax the crap out of water. And just hang on to the gold and silver. By the way, I was looking at something with David Morgan. He says that he thinks gold and silver will peak approximately around 2017. I think I said that, you know. I was just looking at charts going like this and how long the bull market takes. It's like common sense. But, you know, before it gets to that peak, and say it's $150 to $200 for silver or whatever it is, before it gets to that peak, it's going to have a couple other peaks, I think. That's why the next peak might be between 65 and 75. That's why I think, you know, we might see this fairly soon. You know, with all this crap on the taxing on the deposits, and, you know, talking about it in New Zealand, they're talking about it in Italy, Spain, and also, you know, other things that are going on with Iran, with the war possibly coming up. And, you know, you might see these things really, you might see gold and silver go up a lot. Markets are too high right now, right? They're going to go down. It don't mean gold and silver is going to go down. A lot of times when people are scared, the markets are scary, gold and silver go up. It's like an inverse relationship. So there's a number of things on the horizon that's going to probably make gold and silver go a lot higher. But as far as those channels telling you it's going to go straight to 100, I bet you don't. I don't know this for a fact, but I bet you don't. No matter what they say, man, you know, don't be afraid to sell if you get doubles on shit. That's the way I look at it. So I just kind of did a hodgepodge of news events in this video update because there's a lot of crazy shit going on, and a lot of it actually is pretty bullish for the metals too. So, you know, I mean, it's not like I'm not ignoring the facts. These are the facts. So it looks like metals are looking pretty good for real. No bullshit. It looks like they're pretty strong fundamentals besides, but you know, the fear factor of people's deposits is going to help drive them up. If there's a war with Iran, it's going to help drive them up. And if the markets turn down, that's, you know, which they're already near the peak, you know, near their all-time highs. If they start turning down, that's going to drive the fear factor up. And usually the fear factor is really what the deal is with gold. The higher the fear, the higher the price of gold. That's just how that works.